Good evening and welcome to the Pittsburgh Public Schools December Business and Finance Committee meeting. It is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. My name is Emma Yord and I am the chair of the Business and Finance Committee. Tonight we have one item on the agenda, which is an update to the 2026 general fund budget. At this point, I will turn the meeting over to Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Ron Joseph, to give his presentation. Mr. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Director Ewart. So, as mentioned, there is one item tonight, and it's an update on the 2026 general fund budget. So, if we look back to where we were when we released the 2026 preliminary budget, so at that point, the budget was expected to be $739.1 million, and that represented a 2.08% decrease from the 2025 budget. There was a projected $12.2 million deficit for 2026, which was nearly $16 million less than the approved operating deficit for the 2025 budget, which was $28.1 million. At that point, the budget did not adhere to the 5% minimum fund balance policy, which requires that the district maintain 5% of its budgeted expenditures as fund balance. So it did not adhere to that through 2026. At that point in time, based on the expenditures at that point in time, we were projected to have a deficit of $21.9 million for 2025. And the budget did include a 4% millage increase. So here is a listing of the budget assumptions of that time. So we looked at having a 4% millage increase as stated, increasing our income revenue, stable state funding on the expenditure side, rising salary and benefits costs, rising utility costs, increased charter school costs, and also we were assuming that the budget would include the approval and the implementation of the Future Ready Facilities Plan. So at that point in time, we still had some work to do. Our forecast was improved, but we still, as I mentioned, had a $12.2 million deficit, and based on our projections, we would not be able to use fund balance to balance our 2029 budget, and we would be out of fund balance compliance as early as 2026. But since then, since the release of the budget, we have a state budget. So the governor signed the state budget on November 12th. I know that occurred before the release of the preliminary budget, but at that point in time, we were not able to make changes to the budget to incorporate the items that were included in the state budget. So the budget included increases in basic education funding, special education funding, ready to learn funding, and pre-K counts funding. One thing to point out, there was the elimination of the cyber charter transition funding that accounted for about $3.8 million given to the district to offset charter school costs, but that was replaced with cyber charter reform. And based on the estimates that were provided for cyber charter reform, our district cyber charter tuition payments would reduce by an estimated $12.1 million annually. So if we look at the impact of the state budget on PPS, even though it looks like we are losing money from the prior year, and that's based on direct funding that we're receiving from the state, that is offset by the estimated $12.1 million in savings that we would get from cyber charter reform in the form of not paying as much in terms of our cyber charter tuition payments. So when we incorporated all the items in the state budget, namely cyber charter tuition reform, we were projected at that point in time to actually have a budgetary surplus for 2026. So after the passage of the state budget, if we took the items of state budget, incorporated that into the preliminary budget that was released, we would have a balanced budget at that point in time, and we would be close to having a balanced budget in 2027. And if we looked at 2028, we would just be coming out of fund balance compliance, but we wouldn't have to worry about having sufficient fund balance to balance our budget in 2029, and it would give us some more time to reduce that deficit and hopefully not have to rely on fund balance, but we would either not have to or minimally rely on fund balance for the next 2 years. But if we go back and revisit our budgetary assumptions, some of those assumptions had to be updated based on the vote last week, as well as the governor's budget. So I highlighted the increase in charter costs based on expenditures, as well as the approval of the implementation of the Future Ready Facilities Plan. Those budgetary assumptions were removed because the plan was not approved, and based on cyber charter reform, our cost for charter school tuition rate is actually set to decrease. So now for our updated 2026 general fund budget. So now the budget expenditures are at $732.3 million, and this marks a almost a 3% decrease from the 2025 budget. The budget is projected to have a $6.3 million deficit, which is nearly $22 million less than the budget that was adopted in 2025. This budget does now adhere to the board 5% fund balance policy through 2026, thanks largely in part to the cyber charter school payment savings passed in the governor's budget. And based on the actual expenditures through actual revenues and expenditures through October, we're actually projected to have $18.4 million deficit in the current fiscal year. As I mentioned, the budget now includes those savings from cyber charter tuition reform, and it still does include a 4% millage increase. So this is just an overview of the major expenditures by object in the 2026 budget. As you can see, we're still at just under 50% of our budget is for salaries and benefits, and the next largest item is charter school payments, which are sitting at $148 million and 20% of our budget. That is down from over $160 million. So that's where we're seeing a lot of our improvement in our budget. And here's a comparison from our preliminary budget to our updated budget. You can see that based on the future ready facilities plan not being approved, there's an increase in our salaries based on the prior budget that was produced, but then there is a decrease to our cyber charter tuition rates. So that accounts for the big change in our budget, providing us with some wiggle room so that we can have further work to do in the upcoming years to work at reducing our budget. So in terms of our financial outlook, our budget is no longer balanced, and our deficits continue, but we're still facing lower deficits than we were in the preliminary, but we still have some work to do to further reduce those budgeted deficits. So, and we're still at return to the position where in 2029, for the 2029 budget, we won't have fund balance to rely on to balance our budget. So we would have, at that point in time during the course of the 2029 year, depleted our fund balance. So we have to make some structural changes via either additional revenue or reducing our expenditures to make sure that we can be in fund balance compliance and not be at risk of further depleting our fund balance. So key takeaways. The operating budget for 2026 does have a $6.3 million deficit. It does adhere to the board's fund balance compliance policy through 2026, but at that point in time in 2029, we won't have fund balance to rely on to balance our budget. The budget does include cyber charter tuition reform savings to the tune of $12.1 million, and it does include a 4% millage increase this year. So in terms of our timeline, tonight is our Business Finance Committee meeting where I presented a update to the general fund budget that will be voted on in December. On Monday at 5:30, I believe, is the special budget public hearing. December 17th is the scheduled legislative meeting where the board will take action on the general fund budget and the associated tax rates. And by state statute, we have until December 31st to adopt the 2026 budget. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. I'll turn it over to you, Director Yord, for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. A couple quick questions for you before the rest of the board chimes in. Can you elaborate on the differences between the budget projection on slide 15 and the budget projection on slide 8. Is the budget projection on slide 8 the one that's assuming passage of the state budget and had we approved the facilities,
Yes,
future ready plan? Got it.
that's
And then the
correct.
slide
So
15 is where we're currently at because we did not approve the future ready plan.
yeah, I kind of tried to take it chronologically, even though the
Yeah.
state budget technically was approved prior to us releasing the preliminary budget, but just where we had the preliminary budget where we made incorporate the updates prior to the vote. So assuming that the assumptions in the original preliminary budget held true,
Okay.
adding on any of the benefits of the state budget, but then since the plan was not approved, it's unwinding those parts of the plan that were factored in and then layering on any of the savings from the state budget. So that's where you get to the budget that the projection in slide 15.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. And can you refresh our memories on the approximate amount, like dollar amount of the tax increase?
Yeah, so it's about $7 million.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had another question. Oh, I had a question for Ms. Rudolph. I see that she's on. Ms. Rudolph, were you able to do the staffing analysis that we had talked about briefly, or is that not ready yet? I see that you are unmuted, but if you're
Good evening, Margaret Rudolph, Chief Human Resource Officer. That is not ready. It's a manual configuration of our vacancies. We aren't able to just run a report.
Yeah, you'd mentioned that. Yeah. Do you know if it will be ready before the board votes on the budget?
We can do that.
Okay, that would be helpful for the for reference for the rest of the board. This was something that we had talked about briefly in a budget meeting a few months ago, and Chief Rudolph and I were just able to remind ourselves of what that was. And it was a request from the board for a high-level analysis of the vacant positions that are currently still included in our budget. And I requested that Chief Rudolph break those out by how long the positions have been vacant and approximate dollar amounts based on how long the positions have been vacant, so that the board can get a better understanding of the financial impact of the vacant positions that are being budgeted for. So that'll be hopefully a reference point for the rest of the board moving forward. Are there questions from other folks on the board? Director Silk, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are a little garbled, but we can hear you all right now.
Okay. If it continues to be garbled, I'll switch to my phone because I noticed that the camera wasn't working. So please interrupt me if this is intolerable, and I'll pass to someone else and join on the phone. I wanted to add a point of clarification to that report, and this is based on my recollection from that conversation. The additional piece of information of interest was what subset of those approximately 170 vacancies do we actually think are we unlikely to fill? And therefore we could consider eliminating from our budgeted expenses, which would not only reduce expenditures for that line item, but also have some impact on what we are charged to pay out to charter schools. I want to pause to make sure that was an accurate clarification.
Yeah, we heard you loud and clear. Chief Rudolph, is that something that you think you can add to the staffing analysis that you're working on?
I think I need more clarity because what I heard Director Silk say was positions that we wouldn't be able to fill or are not able to fill. And that seems like a different analysis than positions that we've determined that we have affirmatively determined not to fill, or, we're reducing from the budget because we no longer need that position. So I think I just need clarity on the want to fill or we'll have trouble filling verbiage. I know that's not verbatim, but that's what that's what I heard.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. The ask was to make sure that whatever unfilled positions are in the budget are unfilled positions that we are truly carrying forward and seeking to fill versus. So I'm not asking about the ability to fill. I'm asking about, are there any positions among that 170 some that we are no longer interested in filling, that we've made a business decision or otherwise to no longer fill, and just to get confirmation that either none of those are in that set, or these are some that we do still need to remove.
Thank you. That helps.
Okay. And then the question that I have around cost savings is because I think we've brought this up. I think a couple of board members have brought this up, but I don't think that there has been discussion. I don't recall hearing about this. To what extent are we considering the competitive bidding process recommendations in the recent report shared by the City Controller's Office?
Yeah, great question, and I can answer that, Director Silk. That is on the agenda for us to discuss at the January Business and Finance meeting. Director Walker and I had a meeting with Dr. Walters last Wednesday to just debrief on that and talk about approach. But the plan will be that that'll start to be addressed in January with Controller Heisler attending that meeting so that she can provide input to it, and with the goal of starting to work on updating our procurement policy, then running it through the policy committee and actioning some of that starting next year. So that'll happen regardless of whether I am chairing business and finance or not.
Okay.
So I'm going to include that in handover notes for whoever handles the committee moving forward, if it is not me.
Okay, and so that's fabulous. I appreciate that moving forward, and wonder about being able to include any potential savings from that movement in our budget assumptions. And
So
that's my last question.
So one thing, if you read the report, there were some assumptions based on looking at what the second lowest bid was versus the winning bid, and assuming that if you applied those savings over the whole population of contracts that were not deemed to be competitively bid, that you would capture all those savings and that would be the amount that would be realized. But you can't really assume based on that extrapolation that those would be the savings. So you would be hard pressed to just factor in, we're going to get this amount from competitive bidding. I think once you actually engage in the process and you're able to see any of those costs come down or where they would be, that's where you'd be able to set that going forward and set your expectations.
Heard. Thank you.
And if I could add just a little bit more to that, and Dr. Walters, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but we have been working with an individual and an organization to help with some of those procurement costs. And while I think there's been some instances where savings have been seen, the assumptions that this organization has made of their capabilities of creating greater savings has not really been realized over the course of the last year plus. But Dr. Walters, please correct me if I'm wrong in that statement, but I believe that's what the understanding that we've had so far. Oh, he might be frozen. Oh, there he is.
That is correct at this juncture.
Thank you.
And I believe I was frozen because I think I said it a couple times.
We heard you that last time. Thanks, Director Walker, for that clarification. But so yeah, Director Silk, to answer your question, there's some, as Mr. Joseph alluded to, some difference about how much the cost savings are, but regardless, we're going to work to bring our procurement policies in line with best practices in order to have best practice procurement policies, and hopefully those will result in some cost savings for the district. The amount of that is yet to be determined. Are there other questions or comments from board members on the line? Yes, Director Diodati.
Hi, yes. So finally made it home safe and sound. So now I can actually ask questions. I saw that in the plan we've like kind of the plan. Sorry, I apologize. My dad's dog is losing his stuff. He's got the zoomies. So if he barks or something, I apologize. We're assuming that the millage rate will be increased. I'm on my phone, so the video is not too reliable. So that's the only reason I'm not putting my video on.
Okay.
But sorry, the assumes that we will vote yes on the millage increase. What happens if we don't?
Great question. So if we don't
Because
vote yes on the millage, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, because I mean, we have this public meeting happening, and I know that, I know everyone, anytime they hear tax increase, people freak out. So I just want to be prepared to be able to say, well, if we don't do this millage increase, this is what will happen. Because right now we're budgeting as if we already approved it, and we haven't, as far as I know.
Yeah, great question. So yes, that will be something that's voted on at the December 17th legislative meeting. And if we do not approve that millage increase, then the budget deficit that is pictured on slide 15 will go up by approximately $7 million. So rather than a $6.3 million deficit, we would be looking at a approximately $13 to $14 million deficit. It would double our projected deficit for next year.
Thank you.
And to further that question, because you have, I believe someone, and I don't know who it is, has analysis of what the cost of the tax increase per like $100,000 of home value would be. Mr. Joseph, is that something that I've seen from you previously, or did I read that from an external source?
It's something that we put in our budget book, so we do have an impact of the on taxpayers based on a median home value that's less than $100,000, but it's listed in there. We don't necessarily do it at 100,000, but we do it based on a median home value that I think is less than 100,000, but it's listed in the preliminary budget book, and it shows the impact, so you can see what the impact on a taxpayer at that level would be last year versus this year.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Director Diodati, I will make sure, if you and the new board members haven't received the board book, it's slightly out of date now because it was sent to us on the 14th, but I will make sure to forward that to all the board members on the call, but especially the new board members, so that you can see that analysis, and as constituents call you with concerns about the tax increase, that you can provide that context about how much that tax increase would be approximately.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions?
I think that was the big one, at least for now.
Sure. No problem. Director Talaferro?
Thank you, Director Yord. I don't have a lot of questions because the one that I had written down around the vacancies was kind of already discussed and talked about. So I'm looking forward to receiving that information from Chief Rudolph shortly. I did have a question about if there were any considerations taken about what additional revenue would or could look like. Because I know Mr. Joseph did mention additional revenue. So I just wondered, in your conversations or analysis of the budget, if what was considered to be options for additional revenue.
So in terms of additional revenue, we have 3 taxes that we levy: earned income, realty transfer, and real estate. Statutorily, we can only increase real estate taxes, so that's in our taxable revenue. In terms of other revenue sources, they come from the state or some minor portion that comes from the federal government and that we realize in the general fund. But in terms of other things such as usage fees, rental of facilities, we don't really have many facilities that we rent out. We do rent some space to the IU, tuition revenue that we charge for students that we tuition out, that we educate from other districts. So that's revenue that we receive. But in terms of just increasing that, we're not having drastic increases in our tuition rate because we tie that to our costs, and the state also does publish a tuition rate. In terms of other fees that we charge, typically for our building permits, we have a hard enough time getting people to pay for our building permits anyway. So those are the fees that we can charge, and those are the revenue sources that we have. So it's not really easy to generate revenue sources from those other areas because those aren't our core business activities. We have our taxes, we're a taxing body, and any other thing would be having to increase those fees for facilities usage, and we can explore those, but those would be minor because of just the amount of usage that we have for our facilities.
All right, and I know that we've discussed that before. There's not a whole lot of revenue coming into the district. I just was curious if you had been thinking of other ways, but it seems that it's pretty standard to what we typically can do. So thank you for that. I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you, Dr. Yord.
Thank you, Director Talaferro. Director Walker.
Thank you, Director Yord. I mean, I don't have any questions. It's really just a commentary. I mean, I think I'm probably a broken record at this point, but I think the work that we are tasked with, like, involves several decisions kind of working together to make everything work. And so obviously I think last week goes differently if we had this information from the state, 6 weeks ago, potentially. And it just feels like to me that we missed an opportunity to, for the next 2 years, put ourselves in a really strong financial position while also addressing some of the other needs of the district from an educational standpoint. And so, like, it's hard, right? Because now we are asking the public to bear a burden that we weren't willing to bear. Like, we weren't willing to make a decision on our end that would help mitigate some of these issues. And for me, it's just challenging to be in this position. And so I think, we have a really difficult decision ahead of us, right? Because it's between $6 million and $15 million deficit. We have obviously some missing information, which will always be the case. Maybe there'll be good news from the HR report. But I just feel like, and this is a personal feeling, I feel like we missed an opportunity to accomplish something. And I'm not sure, what that looks like in the future, what we'll be able to recapture, because you can't recapture, missed opportunities. So, yeah, I don't know what to think or feel at this point. But I know we're in a tougher spot financially than we had to be. But it is where we are at. So appreciate your work, Mr. Joseph. I know you likely spent many more hours over the Thanksgiving holiday reworking some of this stuff. And so for that, I'm grateful.
Not a problem.
Were those all your comments, Director Walker? Thank you for your feedback. Were there any other comments or questions from any of the other board members on the line?
When did Chief Rudolph say that the report will be back?
We did not get an exact date, but she did say that it would be available before our voting session on the 17th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, going once, going twice. Director Talaferro?
I'm sorry, just to add into that, it would be helpful if it is possible, Chief Rudolph, to have it before agenda review, because that could change questions or create additional questions. If you think that that's possible, it would be helpful. Putting that out there.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going once, going twice. All right, thank you, Chief Joseph, for your presentation. Thank you to the rest of the administration for being here. Hope everybody is safe and warm in their homes, and I echo Director Walker's sentiments. Thank you, Chief Joseph, for the hard work that you and your team had to put in over the holiday weekend to pull this budget together. We appreciate your hard work. With that, if there are no further comments or any other topics of discussion, I'll adjourn this meeting. I hope everybody stays safe and warm this evening, and we will see you Monday evening for our budget public hearing, and then Tuesday of next week for progress monitoring, and Wednesday of next week for our agenda review. As a reminder to folks online and anybody who's watching, the board has an abbreviated calendar this month because of the Christmas holiday. So we'll see you a few times next week. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and have a great night.